141,000, 9,600, 16,000, 105,000, 76,000. Those are the scores of my trials last week. To some of you, these may seem impossibly high, yet no cheating was involved. Instead, I had to ruin the experience of other players to achieve these scores, and that requires understanding the game design of the Trials and Arc Raiders. Streamers like Shroud and CohhCarnage have also said that they think the design of the trials needs a reworking, and have stopped trying to do the trials because of the issues they saw. But why are they saying that? This made me incredibly curious, so I went to take a look. Let's go over the basics. If you've played Arc Raiders before, you can skip to 2 minutes and 16 seconds. You do the trials to get this skin and for the bragging rights of being the Cantina Legend rank, which to be fair, not a lot of folks care about, especially because the skin does not look as grand as other skins. I wish it had sunglasses. But the main fun is to get high numbers, play with others, and get an exclusive unlock, as is the case with many video games. If you are Cantina Legend, you get this skin only if you maintain the rank at the end of the season, so you have to keep playing the whole way through. Every week, there are 5 trials that everyone can do. Let's take an example trial, the Open Arc Probes trial. What does opening mean? It means searching it, seeing the inventory, and a little pop-up on the left shows XP for opening it. This does not mean actually looting any items. You only have to see the probe inventory screen and can immediately leave. Many folks do this trial exactly that way, so you run around the map, opening them, but not looting any items. This action gives you a score, and this score is shared between all of your squad members. Initially, you can get 3 stars at 4,000 points, which gives you some nice items. But to get a max score and rank up in the leaderboards, you have to do this as a trio, because every person in your trio who opens up a probe gives that score to everyone else in the squad. These scores are then tallied onto leaderboards for each rank. You need to shoot for the maximum amount of points to rank up the most, as each trial season is only a few months long. So you have to be high up in the scoreboards to rank up either 1 rank, 2 ranks, or even 3 ranks. You only rank up at the end of each week, so every single week you have to get good scores. This is where we get to the game mechanics. Each map, or lobby as folks call it, lasts 30 minutes. So there's a 30-minute max time to do a trial, and only the score you get in one particular lobby counts towards your points. But you can randomly spawn into the lobby during those 30 minutes. You could spawn in at 25 minutes remaining, or at 20 minutes remaining, or even just at 17 minutes remaining. So for a good trial run, you have to get lucky and hope that you join the lobby at the very start, with the timer reading 29 minutes or more. Anything less, and it's too late for you to cross the entire map in case the trial objectives are far apart and you cannot get a max score anymore. And did you also spawn in at a good location? Each map has many locations for spawns, so if for example you're doing a particular trial like damaging ground enemies, you want to spawn as close as possible to the location of those ground enemies, so you can damage as many as possible. If you don't spawn close enough, you have to reset and leave immediately, creating an emptier lobby for everyone else and a very boring time for yourself. And the exit locations, such as elevators, are also random and have timers. If you want to get max points, you want to use all 30 minutes, which means only one exit will be active all the way at the end. If your objective, such as leapers, respawns in the south part of the map and the last exit is the north one, you cannot get maximum points. And there are also random weather conditions. It can be raining or foggy, which makes it hard to see some objectives. The sunny weather is usually best. If not, you have to immediately reset. And the trial objectives are all over the map, so you have to split up as a team and divide up the map to be able to get to all the probes. But if you are split up as a trio, you may just die very easily, as other teams or big arc enemies will run into you while you are running around alone. And you have to actually survive the map and escape through an exit for the points to count. If you die, the points are removed. So you want everyone in your team to survive, but to get a max score, you have to split up. So you have to hope that you get no PvPers in your lobby that shoot you. But wait, there's more. You can affect whether you're in a PvP lobby or not to a degree. The best way to lower your PvP risk is to join matches and instantly surrender. This makes the system think you are very friendly, and it then places you in friendly lobbies, which creates a boring time for you to repeat that 6 times, and a boring time for other players who now have to play in an empty lobby where they rarely see anyone. You sometimes even bump into the bodies of others who have done exactly the same surrendering, so regular players sometimes find empty lobbies with just dead bodies. Then, once you're in a friendly lobby, you have to make sure others won't do the objectives that you need to do. So you have to clear the lobby of other players. You have to immediately kill everyone else, and it feels awful. These players are genuinely surprised to get killed for no reason, because they really are friendly, and the system has placed them in friendly lobbies. And you only have one shot at that lobby clearing, because afterwards you have to remove your heat again to get in friendly lobbies. And so again, you have to surrender 6 times. It's awful for you, and awful for them. The same thing has happened in other games like Call of Duty, where you would sometimes get battle pass missions to get assists, which would mean hurting an enemy but not killing them, which incentivized gameplay of not helping your team by killing enemies but only damaging them, running away, and hoping someone else would deal the killing blow. That incentive ruins the experience of others. But wait, there's more. The spawns of trial objectives are also in random locations. Sometimes the atrium location of Stella Montis has fireballs. Sometimes the atrium has shredders. Depending on which one you find, one trial may be better to do than another, so you have to reset. But wait, there's more. You get double score on certain map conditions like nighttime, cold snap, and electromagnetic storm. So for a max score and to rank up, you have to do these trials on these map conditions. For the probes trial, the electromagnetic storm event is a requirement for a max score, as that event spawns way more probes on the map. And not every map has the same amount of probe spawns for the electromagnetic storm. The spaceport map has the most probes by far, so for a max score, you also have to make sure the electromagnetic storm is on the spaceport map. Also, the map conditions have timers on them. They only happen at certain times of the day and only last for an hour, so you have to be online playing the game during that exact time the condition is active. For example, to play the Electrostorm spaceport map for the probes trial, I have to be awake at 10 o'clock in the morning here in Amsterdam. Sometimes this event only happens once a day and always at that time for a whole week. And these timers can be found in-game, but only for the next events. All other timers can only be found on third-party websites, of which there are multiple. But the timers for those map conditions are global around the world, which means if you're in an America time zone, you have to wake up at 3 o'clock every night just to be able to have a chance at a max probe score. These event timings change every week, but in the final trials week, that was the only time, once a day, where the Electrostorm event was active on the spaceport map. If you have ever played World of Warcraft, imagine it's like Warsong Gulch is only active for 1 hour during the day between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. It's pretty maddening for those America players, and I felt awful for them. But wait, there's more. Which probe spawn in the map is random every time. The max score found is 76,000, but sometimes there are not enough spawns to get a 76,000 score, and they only spawn enough for a 71,000 score, which you will have no idea about until you have already ran around for 20 minutes. Also, sometimes the probes can spawn underneath the terrain and you literally cannot grab them. You won't find out this is the case until well into a lobby, and then you have to reset and hope you get another good lobby. This reset time eats into the 1 hour you have every day just to try and get a good score. But wait, there's more. There are some special map conditions like Hidden Bunker and Locked Gate that have 40-minute timers instead of 30. You get an extra 10 minutes, which counts for a lot. But this also means everyone will try to do these trials on those maps, so it becomes much harder to find a match where only your team can get a max score. And you have to gather the right items to do these trials. For example, for the Rocketeer trial and the Queen trial, the best way to do them is by using wolf packs, which are incredibly good grenades that kill arc very fast. The material to craft these takes a lot of time and effort to gather. 2 of the most time-intensive trials this season have been Snowball Arc and Damage Wasps. Both of these require items that cannot be crafted and have to be manually gathered. For example, in the Snowball Arc trials, they require you to gather snowballs first. You need to use one lobby just gathering enough snowballs to fill your inventory to even attempt the trial. For the Damaged Wasps trial, you can shoot all the wasps that naturally spawn in the game, but there is an item in the game called a snitch scanner. If you kill a snitch arc, it drops a single snitch scanner. If you throw this snitch scanner, it spawns 2 wasps. So what is the best way to do the Damaged Wasps trial? You gather a massive load of snitch scanners, then you go into a 40-minute map, and then throw them and kill them as they spawn. And if you die or something goes wrong, you have to gather them again. Or maybe you have to defend yourself as you leave. You down someone to do so, and now your heat is up. So you have to do some heat resetting and surrender 6 times before you can get friendly lobbies again. But that may lose you the time to be able to do the matches as the event may be over. I hope you are starting to see how all these systems interact with each other. But wait, there's more. The way the leaderboards work, there are 100 people on each leaderboard. You get placed on a leaderboard after you have achieved any score at all during the week, so even accidental damage on an arc enemy can give you a score and place you on a leaderboard. This means if you play on Monday, when the board and trials reset, you get on a board with other people who play on Monday, and you have to hit a high score in comparison to the others on the leaderboard to make sure you advance to the next tier. So, if you only play on Saturday and Sunday at the end of the week, you usually get on a leaderboard with folks who also only play on those days. They have less chances for a higher score, so it is much easier to get a higher score and promote if you do not play the whole week. So the fastest way to rank up is by not playing the game. This reminds me of back in the day with World of Warcraft, where you would get world buffs from Onyxia, Nefarian, and Zul'Gurub. These powerful buffs would have ticking timers on them for 2 hours, so players would immediately log off to make sure the timer stopped. They could not play the game. Then they would log on during a raid and be able to use the buffs during the hours-long raid. Thankfully, Blizzard noticed this problem for the classic re-release and made an item that allows you to save the buffs into it called a boon, so you can still play without using or losing the buffs. I think this also showcases how these game design problems have existed for a long time. For the higher ranks in Arc Raiders, like Hotshot and Cantina Legend, this leaderboard system does not matter anymore, and you can play all week whenever you want. The Cantina Legend is the top 1,000 players in the world, and it is one huge list, while Hotshot scores are combined with the Cantina Legend scores at the end of a Trials week, and the top 1,000 players of that big list become Cantina Legend rank. But in the Hotshot and Cantina Legend ranks, you cannot actually see everyone who is fighting for Cantina Legend rank, so you have no idea if your score is good enough. It got to the point where people are so afraid of losing their hard-earned rank that someone in the community called Hate Mail graphed out all the data on Hotshot and Cantina Legend leaderboards to put folks at ease about their chances of making it into Cantina Legend in the final week. But wait, there's more. Updates to the game usually happen on Tuesday, but the trials start on Monday. It has happened before that folks who did major trial runs with very high scores on Monday that were then physically not repeatable the rest of the week due to an update that changed the game on Tuesday. For example, on the 27th of January, there was an update for lighting on Stella Mantis, which made the entire map much darker during nighttime, which is when you have to do the trials there due to the event. So everyone on Monday had clear vision in the map, but everyone the rest of the week had to play in very dark conditions, making it much more difficult. And on the 24th of February, the day before the final trials ended, there was a huge update changing the balance of many weapons, items, and even loot, like for example changing the Wolfpack crafting requirements to be even more difficult to craft, while players still had 24 hours left to do the trials and they were still preparing to change their scores. World of Warcraft solved this problem long ago by doing their honor wipes, raid resets, and updates always on the exact same day and time so that nobody would get an unfair advantage. So, considering all of this, and there's even more I haven't gone into, who would be crazy enough to try and reach Cantina Legend? This experience reminds me of Sir and Johnson saying, given the opportunity, players will optimize the fun out of a game. The opportunity is definitely given to players here, considering all the game mechanics involved. But the gameplay and gunplay is also so much fun. When you get a great score and overcome all odds, it's fantastic. The teamwork, it feels awesome. The trial community is also great, where folks look for groups and even made maps for trial objectives. Like this one of the probe locations on the Spaceport Electro map. Or this one of Shredder routes, built by a group of people as they try to figure out how the systems of the game work to get the best scores. It's like the speedrunning community, where people share their valuable intel to help everyone else. People even started hosting an interactive map service to mark down in-game locations that have probes, husks, plants, anything that can help everyone else. Look at this huge list of options and all these helpful maps to show what can be found where. It's what I used in this video. But with all the metagaming possible, everyone tries to get to the extremes. Remember how I mentioned you need to bring in lots of snitch scanners, snowballs, and watch out for PvP? Some folks, and I do not condone this and never did this myself, started playing with 21-man teams. You can technically only play with 3 people total, but they had 21 people all sit in Discord at the same time, queue at the same time, and then basically own an entire lobby. One team then does the trial, and all the other ones sit around and wait. Or the other teams even drop them more snowballs, more snitch scanners, to get absurdly large scores that would never be possible in a legitimate trio. This is so overpowered that the top team who did this got a 407,000 total score in the last week. Even they themselves didn't like doing this, and they changed their names in the leaderboard to Embark Please, Rework, Trial System to get their attention. Again, players will optimize the fun out of a game given the opportunity. Some great examples of this are folks trying to find out the best way to play the game and making up mythologies of the internal logic to see how they can get higher scores. For example, closing the doors of rooms to make enemies spawn faster. Nobody knows if this works, but they feel it works, and so they will do it. Like, you would hold the A button in Pokemon to have a better catch. It did nothing, but it feels good. There's nothing you can do otherwise, so you do it. Also, sometimes Ark can spawn while you look at them with a big great black plume of smoke, but sometimes they spawn in silently. Players have no idea why it does either one, so they just do anything they can to make spawns happen. Of course players would try to guess how systems work. They are incentivized to develop theology from first principles. If the incentive to the players to get a high score as possible, some will do anything they can do. Tom Francis made a great point about this in the past, where he said, whatever you reward, some players will feel forced to do it. The tiny XP payout for hacking in Deus Ex 3 killed the game for this person. And he linked to a Reddit comment about how a player felt obligated to hack every small device in the game, which made it very boring for them, but the game mechanics incentivized that behavior. And I understand as a game developer myself that game development is tough. QA particularly. Months of QA work by a team of 12 means thousands of hours of QA. But if on day one of your game going live you get millions of players, that means they will get millions of hours of gameplay in just a day. They will find crazy things that a QA team could never find in years. Similarly, when it comes to game design issues, players will react in ways you cannot fully predict at huge multi-million player count scales. It is really hard work. If there was a perfect way to design games, then everyone would be doing that all the time and all games would be successful, which they are not. But you do have to prepare for game design issues to come up, especially in live service games. Hopefully, only 5 minutes into this video, you realized some of the incentive structures in the game design of these trials in relation to the rest of the game did not fit together well. This is not just the case for game players, it also goes for game developers, like on Steam. Game developers want to get to the top of the Steam charts to get the most sales. And Valve releases videos talking about how the Steam algorithm works to get to the top of the charts. But they do not actually publish the source code of the system, which means game developers will forever keep guessing and making mythology about how the system works. For example, people guessed that wish lists were the most important, but then later folks mentioned that you should actually get people on a Discord community first, and then when you have thousands of them there, make them all wish lists at the same time, which would apparently make the algorithm serve your game more because it sees it as a giant boost. Which is true? Nobody knows. Whoever is successful will just push their narrative as the right one for the system. Just keep pressing A to try and catch your Pokemon. Players will always see the systems from a player's perspective. In the end, it is us as game developers who are responsible for setting up the incentives for players. And by not being clear to players about how to achieve the results they want, they will create mythology around your game, which can sometimes be much worse for all the other players. Deadlock is a good example of how to prevent this, because if you press tab, you get to see exactly what items the enemy team has bought. You could technically find this out manually, but it would be very annoying and time-consuming work. Not fun, so they remove that boring manual work by being instantly clear about the system. Now you may think that only a few people go for these max trial scores, and that's true, but by doing so they affect the gameplay, economy, and experience of many others. By the system incentivizing just a few people to go to extremes, everyone else is affected. This is not just a problem in video games. Systems are everywhere in society. People keep asking others to behave in certain ways, but you can't. You have to change the incentives so that people change their behavior by themselves. Otherwise, a small group of people will ruin it for many others, because they are incentivized to do so. As Charlie Munger once said, "Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcomes." Thanks to today's technology, you can quickly see these connections. There's a great book about this called Thinking in Systems by Donella H. Meadows, and it goes into way more detail on this topic. Whatever the system incentivizes, that is what will happen, even if it does not make intuitive sense for the system to do so. That is what makes systems design so hard. Which is why I think it would be better if games were more transparent about their internal mechanics. How does the MMR work? Show the data. How do the spawns work? Be clear about the mechanics. In the end, the entirety of the game's development determines the user experience, which is also a core tenet of user experience design, the holistic design. If someone tries to push a door which they should have pulled, they may feel stupid for doing so, but it is the design of the door which is at fault. The user is not at fault. You have to listen to these complaints of people saying systems are unclear. You should not just do what they suggest as a fix, but you should absolutely listen to complaints because behind the complaints are legitimate experiential issues. The best example I've ever heard of this is from Wolfenstein Enemy Territory in a video by People Make Games, where players complained that one gun was better than another, even though with the data they were shown to have the exact same stats.
They're identical, they're absolutely the same damage, rate of fire, reload speed, clip size, absolutely the same. The players are wrong. This is bad feedback. And then we look at the server data, and players are getting more kills with the Thompson than the MP40. The players are right. How? What's going on here? And the one thing we trace it to is the Thompson had bassier audio. It just sounded more powerful. So players felt more powerful, they felt more confident with it, they went for more headshots, they got more headshots, they got more kills. The players were right. So the fix for it was to change the audio, not the weapon. we just put less bassy audio on it and they felt more similar, and that sort of solved the problem.
I heard a similar story about a MOBA where in the patch notes they said they had nerfed a hero and that hero's win rate actually went down after that patch. But they had forgotten to include the actual changes in the patch. The win rate went down because players thought it had been nerfed even though it hadn't. The information we give about a system matters just as much as the system itself. This is why open source development is also so powerful. It's just like with the game, you get millions of people checking out your systems instead of only an internal QA team. In the end, the purpose of a system is what it does, not what you intended it to do. If your system incentivizes some of your players in a way that negatively affects the experience of many others, then that is a fault of the system. So, were Shroud and CohhCarnage right in their criticism of the game design of Trials? Yes, I would say so. Having gone through the Trials myself, I can see where their frustration comes from. Though at the same time, I had an amazing time with the community, breaking down mechanics and helping each other, as well as having exhilarating runs of great gameplay together. I had lots of frustration with the RNG, and I think some of the game design incentives set people up to create a frustrating experience for themselves, creates mythology based on hearsay, and a worse game experience for the folks around it. I think by exposing how systems work, we can more easily see the gaps in our own logic as game developers. We can prevent frustration from players, and we can provide a magic circle where we can all clearly see the edges of where it starts and where it ends. Please let me know what you think, subscribe if you liked this, and thank you for watching.